Welcome everybody to another photo critique. It's been a while, but I'm finally back, and today I've got 9 pictures from Wolfgang. So let's just jump straight away into the first photo, and the first thing that jumps to me is the very vibrant color. So you have a lot of different colors, the green tones, especially towards the left. I think your vibrance works really well. It's very vibrant while not being oversaturated. However, on the right, it's almost a little bit too much for my taste. However, in terms of the overall colors, in terms of the overall differentiation of the colors, it's really beautiful and very interesting. Also, your differentiation in the whole lighting scheme and the whole dynamic of the picture is very interesting. You have a lot of dark shadows, and you also have a lot of bright highlights. You have a lot of dark shadows, but you also have a lot of different shadow hues and shades within the dark areas. And you also have a bunch of different highlight tones within the water. So I think that works really well, makes your whole picture seem very dynamic and very interesting. And to your framing and composition, I do see a potential of just kind of framing it like this, which is a very simplistic framing. However, you chose to add a bit more of these leaves on the left and even another waterfall towards the right. Now, I actually really love that because that makes your picture look a lot more complex, and it's just a lot more in it, which of course makes your whole picture a lot more interesting because there's a lot more going on, especially if you're gonna look at it for a while, if you hang it at a wall, for example. But overall, absolutely love the picture, also really love your exposure time. It's not too slow, so you still have some texture within the water, but it's also not completely frozen, so I think it works absolutely great. I would just dial back on some of the saturation here on the greens, and you could also try out a different kind of crop, but other than that, absolutely beautiful picture. Then here we got a landscape sunset. You really have a lot of things going on here, all of these trees, the foreground, the fence, and all of the rest, but it really does work. I think the main thing that makes this picture work is this fence on the bottom right. It not only leads a little bit into the picture, but the main thing that it does is really anchor and add an additional point of interest to your photo, because without it, it would be very empty on the foreground and it would really not be nearly as interesting. And another very important aspect of your photo is of course the sun. It's overexposed, but I don't mind it as much, and I really like the sun rays. And because you have this cloud, so kind of a tight gap from the bottom of the cloud to the top of the mountain, it really seems even more dynamic, and it kind of adds an additional leading line in the picture. Now, you have a lot of going on, as I said before, but you really made it work, especially with the fencing. It kind of goes like this, and then to the valley, to the mountain, or if you go that way, it also leads to the mountain. So it's really great picture. I would just dial back on some of the green tones in the sky, and I would also grab an adjustment brush, raise the shadows, maybe even exposure, and make this whole cloud area here a bit brighter, because it's very dark and dramatic, which I don't think works as well in a sunny and as bright of a picture as this one. But other than these 2 points, I think it's a very solid photo. Then here we got another very interesting photo, also kind of at either sunset or sunrise. And the first thing that really stands out to me is that exposure on these houses. It's just way too much, it doesn't seem natural anymore. Here, for example, on the mountain, I think you've also added some burning here, but it looks a lot more natural and a lot more organic, so I would definitely dial down on this exposure right here. Now, in terms of your overall picture, I absolutely love the composition and the framing, because you have all of these lines kind of leading to the houses, and the houses are in the middle, so everything just works really well together. However, the overall picture is a bit dark, so I would just raise the overall exposure by maybe a third of a stop. And that way you would retrieve a bit more of these details, and you would also make the sky a lot brighter, and I definitely think that the sky is the main thing that is too dark. Also, I would probably dial down on some of these red tones in the sky, even though you have a nice pattern and I do like the red, it's just a little bit over the top. So make the whole picture a bit brighter, remove this plus exposure on the village, dial back some of the saturation in the sky, and maybe even add an additional layer of plus exposure in the sky if the overall exposure didn't do enough. Because even though I see that you went for a very dark and gloomy mood, it's really too much for me. So let's go to the next one, and once again you have a lot of things going on, the mountains, the clouds, the stars, of course the beautiful lighting of the city, as well as this little shack on the bottom right. So you have a lot of things going on, but once again you manage to make it look uncluttered, and it seems to work all together. The only thing I would do here is to increase the exposure in this shack area, because it's very easy to oversee, and I think this shack plays a very important role here, because without it, it would really be very empty in the bottom right. As an idea, you could of course try to go closer to the shack, kind of get a more dramatic wide angle shot. And you could also, actually this is a thing that I would really try, let me see. So you shot this at 10mm, really wide angle, but the main thing my eye goes to, even though I really like the lighting of the city and the shack, my eye really goes to these clouds, to the mountains and the stars. So maybe if you would have used a long telephoto lens and just kind of went for a framing like this, it would be, not better, but another option for you to choose from. Sometimes it can really be a good idea to just try out and grab your long lens and then kind of make a very simplistic and focused picture like this. But at the end, great picture overall, absolutely love it. The only thing I would suggest to you, which is not anything to say about the picture, but upload your photos a little bit bigger. You don't have to upload them in full resolution, but just how they are, or how this picture is right here, it's very hard to appreciate all of the detail, and it would look a lot more impressive as well if you would just have it a lot bigger. I personally upload my pictures in 1500 by 1000, which I think is a pretty good value for, having a big picture while still not being too big to where it could be stolen and really be printed or anything. But yeah, I do like the picture overall. Then here we got a black and white picture, a very contrasty one. It does work with the two paths here. You do have this branch going to the rock, and it looks very organic, almost as if they were both go together. So maybe that's what you were going for. In that case, stick with it. But it might have just worked better if you would have gone lower, so that the branch would have sticked above the rock right here, which kind of gives it more breathing room, but then again, it's not really distracting whatsoever, so definitely preference. The only thing that I would do here though is go back down with the highlights, because it's really too bright. I think you even have some clipped areas here, so it doesn't really work all that well if you have such a dark, gloomy and very contrasty overall picture. And also, I would go just dial down with some of the vignetting in the sky, because it almost seems a bit overdone. But other than really the highlights and the dark sky, there's not really too much to do, other than, of course, trying to go lower and kind of changing the height of this tree. But great picture overall, nevertheless. Then this, as you can see here, this is just very impressive because it is so big compared to this photo right here. It's really no comparison. But let's go to the actual photo. The composition is definitely very simplistic, and it's a good thing, because here you don't have a ton of things going on. It's a very serene photo, and it does work. I absolutely love the way you edited this foreground. It seems very dynamic in itself. I think you've added probably a lot of clarity and even some contrast, but you really made it work because it does add so much more interest even just in the foreground alone. Also, your exposure time, once again, absolutely love it. You didn't go too slow to where everything would just be completely blurry. You still have some textures of the waves here and also on the shoreline. So I absolutely love the exposure time. The overall color scheme is very saturated, very reddish and very warm. And it almost seems a bit abstract, but because it's such a simplistic composition, I do think it works, and it maybe even has a little bit of a filmish look, but a great picture nevertheless. Absolutely love the color, the exposure, especially in the foreground. You have so much differentiation, works very beautifully. Of course, also the sun plays a pretty important part, even though I think this picture would be good without the sun itself as well. But that way you have a little bit more reflection and an additional point of interest, which also kind of leads you into the picture. So absolutely gorgeous picture. I have to say this is my favorite picture of you so far, and everything just flows and works together very, very well. The only thing that would make this picture even better is if there was a boat on the left or maybe a bird flying through the photo, but of course that's nothing you can control and it would just be kind of a cherry on the top. So once again, absolutely gorgeous picture, wouldn't do a thing to it. Then here we got a very interesting photo. So it seems that you've used two different shots, one with a polarizer so you see below the water, and another one without the polarizer so you have this reflection, and then you probably went into Photoshop and kind of merged these two together with a very soft edge. And I do have to say, I really love it because it's so rare and so interesting to see an underwater object as foreground element. That makes the whole picture seem very interesting because you don't see it that much, but also very abstract and artistic. I absolutely love this color as well. It's a very saturated blue, which might not work in some other pictures, but because this is such an abstract photo, it does work very well. The only thing that I would do here is go to the sky and make the whole sky a whole lot brighter, because it just doesn't work with such a bright picture with such bright reflections, which are really at the shrink of being overexposed. But I think that works the absolute best here, and that the sky just doesn't work at all with the rest, so definitely make the sky brighter, and then you have a really amazing picture. You could also try to grab an adjustment brush and kind of add different levels of shading and of contrast on some of these hills in the background, but that would be a very minor thing. Overall, very interesting picture and definitely not something you see every day. Then here, wow, this is a really great picture. I absolutely love this one. This is my new favorite. Just everything works so well. You don't have much color, but the little color of the trees that you do have really add a lot to the picture. Also, the overall composition is very simplistic once again, but the overall mood, the clouds of course, and the use of clarity on all of these rocks really make it work. So absolutely love this picture. And a thing that I'm really glad that you didn't do is go all the way with the highlights or with the white slider, because you would definitely have a lot more leeway until you would clip anything, but by not going that far, you still remain this kind of moody and gloomy, stormy look of the overall picture. So yeah, definitely amazing photo, absolutely love it, my new favorite. Then let's see here, I believe this is the last photo, and it's another sunset. The first thing that comes to mind is that it really seems that you've added a ton of noise reduction on these rocks. Let's just quickly see. You shot this at ISO 830 seconds, so you will get quite a lot of noise. However, You know, I would have reduced the ISO and just went a lot further with the shutter speed, because you already have almost no texture in the water and you have the clouds very blurry, which I think is a good thing. But if you go a little bit beyond that, I don't think it would hurt the picture either. It might even make it look even more interesting, and of course that way it would allow you to use a much lower ISO, which then results in lower noise, which means that you don't have to add that much noise reduction and make all of the stones here look so plasticky. But that said, it's not a huge deal. Of course, you're only gonna notice it if you're gonna look closely. But in terms of the overall picture, a sunset, absolutely amazing colors here. I do think that the sun and the sun rays play a very vital role in this photo. Without that, without the color, if this was just shot at mid-daylight, then it would be very boring, but that way you really add a lot of interest. And with the composition, it's a very simplistic composition, but it does work. I do like that you have such a big rock in the immediate foreground, very close. That really gives a sense of perspective and kind of also acts as an anchor point. However, it's just a bit too much. I would probably crop it to something like this, although you cannot crop it in post because then you would lose a lot of the other rocks to the left, which I don't think is worth it. But in the field, I would change it so you don't have quite as much of this front rock in the photo. But other than that, once again, great picture, absolutely beautiful color, and I wouldn't really do anything else to it. So these were the 9 pictures from Wolfgang. Thank you very much for submitting your pictures. You definitely have a lot of really stunning photos. If I would have to choose my top 3, I would definitely go with this one at the first place, then this one as well, because it has so much different colors, so much different shadow and bright areas, while still being very simplistic. And my third would probably be either this one or this one right here. I do have to say though, this is a very unique photo, and I haven't seen much of the use of using a polarizer and another picture without the polarizer and then kind of stitching them together. That's definitely a really nice idea. But I hope you at least could find some of these tips and techniques helpful. Once again, if you would like to submit your own pictures, you can do so via 500px or via Flickr. Just be sure to check out the links in the description. It's gonna be down there somewhere on how you can do all of that. But I'm gonna sign out here. Thank you as always very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already for more videos just like this one, and also some other photography videos, Lightroom tutorials, and all of that stuff. Anyways, I hope you have a great day, and as always, take care. And speaking of taking care, why don't you also take care of your pictures by displaying them in your very own professional photography portfolio? With SmugMug you can do just that and create your very own professional photography portfolio or website. SmugMug has unlimited storage on any plan, so you can upload your entire Lightroom catalog as well as unlimited videos. It is used by professional photographers all over the world. It has absolutely beautiful templates while still being 100% customizable, excellent 24/7 customer support, and all of that starts from less than $3 a month. So be sure to check out the link in the video description and you will get a crazy 25% off any plan until May 9th. And you also get a completely free trial, so you can try out everything for yourself without having to pay a single cent. Display your pictures in a way they're meant to with your own portfolio.